Welcome to ILTV's Israel Weekly. Our main topic today, two of United States President Donald Trump's major campaign promises that have now come to fruition: the crumbling of the JCPOA nuclear agreement with Iran, and the official recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, complete with a shiny new embassy. The question is how Trump's decisions will play out here. And joining me in the studio to find out, we have former Meretz Party Knesset member Avshalom Vilan, the Director of Development and External Relations at Peace Now, Brian Reeves, founder and executive director of the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies, Dr. Martin Sherman, and editor-in-chief of Midah, Ziv Maor. Now, starting with the JCPOA, President Trump has officially withdrawn the United States from involvement in the Iranian nuclear agreement, and a short time later, a barrage of Iranian missiles made their way towards Israel's northern defense posts. Thankfully, most fell short or were dealt with by the Iron Dome system, and no damages or injuries were reported. But it did prompt a swift Israeli retaliation in which dozens of Iranian positions in Syria were crippled. Though Israel claims that Iran's military capabilities in Syria were set back several months, the tensions on the northern border haven't been this high in decades.
הקהילה הבינלאומית צריכה למנוע את ההתבססות של כוח קודס האיראני בסוריה. אנחנו צריכים להתאחד כדי לכרות את זרועות הרשע המתפשטות שלו שם ובכל מקום. אני חוזר ואומר, מי שיפגע בנו, אנו נפגע בו שבעתיים. ומי שנערך לפגוע בנו, נפעל לפגוע בו קודם לכן. כך עשינו, וכך נמשיך לעשות.
חשוב, ואני מקווה שזה לא מן השפה החוצה, שזה מסר אמיתי, ואנחנו באמת לא מחפשים שום חיכוך, שום עימות נוסף עם אף אחד. אנחנו לא באנו לגבול האיראני, הם באו לכאן.
We think all nations of the world should make it very clear that this type of behavior is unacceptable by Iran and by the IRGC, and should call on them to stop these types of activities throughout the region.
Dr. Sherman, I'm going to start with you this week. So Israel is claiming that Iran's military offenses in Syria, their capabilities, have been pushed back. First of all, how do we know that? And what can you tell us about that?
Well, I think the Israeli intelligence has proved that the Iranian security apparatus is very porous. So, I think that we've probably got a very good idea of what's going on there. But I think that we shouldn't be complacent. I don't think that Iran at this stage is prepared to give up its strategic aim of turning Syria into a proxy state of theirs and having a platform to attack Israel from short distances. I've said in a few programs previously that I think the only thing that will, in the short run, deter Iran from its aggressive behavior is a credible threat on its infrastructure, its bridges, its dams, its power stations, and other infrastructure installations. And in the long term, there's only a regime change. And I think the Iran deal that was cut in 2015 has empowered the current regime militarily, enriched it economically, and entrenched it politically, making that kind of solution far more difficult. But the fact that it's difficult doesn't mean to say it's the only route that has to be taken.
Well, so that being said, their forces being crippled and Israel being very sure about this. Exactly, so temporarily. So what do you think the point of that attack, of their initial attack was? Was it to test our borders?
There's no doubt that the tactic means that they used in this attack is nothing of what they're capable of. They're capable of much more. And I do believe that most Israelis can appreciate the fact that the foe that is Iran is in a way higher scale than what we're used to in terms of Palestinian organizations, the Hezbollah, etc. This is a sovereign, huge country with 60 million civilians, quite a steady economy, etc. We know that it is a different scale, and we all hope and believe that the IDF is capable of defending us of this because, let's be honest, this is something that the IDF itself in all the 70 years of the existence in Israel never yet faced. And this is without the prominent threat from the nuclear bomb. So it is not only crucial to have the IDF prepared as it's proven to be, but also to have the back of the United States, of Russia, and of other countries. And this is the diplomatic arena, and we also succeed in this arena. And this is why most Israelis, apart from what just happened in Eurovision, feel quite optimistic.
Mr. Vilan, do you have a response?
First of all, I agree with my colleagues. It's first for a long time, maybe time to agree on something. But having said that, I think that the point is how, on the one hand, not to allow the Iranian to build a basis in Syria, or furthermore, what the real strategic issue is to try to have direct line from Tehran till the Mediterranean and to take care of all the region by the Shia forces by all means. And we have one front with the Hezbollah already, and we don't need in any case another front. But take into consideration that we have to be very smart and very intelligent, because the alternative for a full confrontation with Iran, it's not our national interest, and I believe that it's not their own one. Because you have to know that although we are stronger than them in this very moment, they have enough missiles, if they decide to, in trying to attack Israel, that let's assume that even from all fronts...
Isn't that a powerful argument for preemption?
No. The only thing that I said that we have to control the situation. We know what the other side has.
Well, what does
We
that
had a
mean?
very
What
good
does that mean?
intelligence, but we have to work smart and not to escalate the situation to a moment that nobody will can conclude.
So
what
not
one
only
way.
the US, you also have the Israeli left backing this action, so it's quite an achievement.
No, for sure. Everyone agrees that Iran is Israel's principal military threat and that Israel has a right to operate freely in the Syrian airspace if Iran is threatening Israel from that area.
Right. They have a need. They don't have a right. They have a need.
Agreed. The issue here is now that, as you brought up, now that the JCPOA, that the U.S. pulled out of it, we can probably expect it to collapse or it to be completely weakened. And I don't think Israel should hold its breath for Trump to negotiate a better deal. So the issue here is also we have to continue to think about the nuclear threat. What to do, what should Israel do? How can Israel seek to get U.S. guarantees now that these nuclear constraints that the deal did have, even though it was imperfect, are now off the table?
Do you think it was wrong then to push for the dissolution of
I do,
the
yeah.
dissolvement?
Well, I think it was wrong of the United States to back out without coming up.
The deal proved that there was no constraints whatsoever. The
He
JCPOA was
didn't
not
prove it.
affected.
It was old news, and everyone
putting out
said
of the
that.
deal was a moral and a logical imperative, because the deal was impossible to verify. And let's suppose you kept the
What
deal.
now is our alternative? Because if we get away from the hypothetical of this is what we should have happened, but Obama was years ago. So
until
what?
he broke his word, Obama gave the alternative. He said no deal is better than a bad deal. This is a bad deal. So the alternative is no deal, backed up by biting sanctions and a credible force, and a credible threat of military force. That's the deal. That's the alternative.
But do you think that the European Union
for all the saber rattling of Iran, it's in a pretty bad position. Its economy is crumbling. There's a huge water crisis that's going to displace millions of people. There's rising unemployment despite the lifting of the sanctions, and there's civil unrest across the country. So this biting sanctions and a credible threat against their infrastructure just might concentrate the minds of the Ayatollahs.
At least
Let's look forward. The main issue is how to replace the Iranian regime, this Ayatollah regime, in a regular regime that can give the people of Iran a right and good standard of living over there. This is the name of the game now. That's the reason that I said we have to be sophisticated and smart. Meaning that when American president saying, okay, I break everything and start again the sanction, the question is, what is the next step? And the next step is, do you build an alternative? Because if you decide to use force,
That's not true.
maybe then you give them even sometimes double time to be in power, because then the people will support them.
What we just heard, Aaron, it's a ridicule of the logic of the Israeli left for the last few decades.
Well, but do you see
there
an
are two
alternative
versions of
to-
it.
to-
Well, I'll talk about that in a minute, but let's analyze what Brian said and what Abu said. What Brian said basically is, well, we had a bad agreement. Let's find another bad agreement, like the bad agreement that we didn't have about giving the Golan Heights to the Syrians, like the bad agreement that we have with the Palestinians in Oslo. Let's fill the world with bad agreements until there is no West
Well,
left.
but
And what
again,
Abu
I
said-
think the problem here with the argument that you're making, though, if you don't mind me saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but again, it's dealing with a lot of hypotheticals of, this is what we should have done. But the issue is that what do we do about the issues that we're facing today, not what we should have done
Just
years
what we are
ago?
doing today, and that's the answer to
That's
what
not a
Abu said.
theoretical question.
We have to defend our own interests. My heart goes out to the Iranian civilians that has got a very bad regime that hurts them, right? There is no doubt about it. But my first priority is to defend the citizens of Israel, and this means we have to be so-called passive. We can create some kind of preemptive war for our interests.
Who told you it?
But
Who told you?
overthrowing,
I didn't say
overthrowing.
so.
Well, what
you
he
know,
said.
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You have to understand. I believe that our real strategic aim is to push Iran aside, meaning we are not the part of the struggle between the Shia and the Sunni in the Muslim world. We have to do our best to the best of our ability to put Iran in a situation that, from their point of view, they will try to replace this regime. We cannot do it by force. On the contrary, sometimes when you are using too much force, you endanger this strategic goal.
Our only strategic goal is to survive. Nothing but that. We do not care about corrupt regimes anywhere else in the world. This one we care about because they threaten us directly, and we need to do what we need to do to defend ourselves. This is the only strategic goal. And whether or not it is possible for us to overthrow this regime and replace it, or just to find whatever
Remember
means.
one thing: by force, you can protect yourself, but you cannot change a regime.
No, that's not true.
The
The
only
United
thing
States has proved.
is that
The United
it
States
will
has-
come
United States has failed
from their
multiple
people.
times on
And
that.
this makes the whole
United States
difference.
hasn't failed in bringing down regimes. The United States has proved that with air power and special forces, it can bring down any regime in Serbia, Afghanistan, and Iraq. The money that they spent after that was wasted because it's a different science, bringing down a regime and replacing a
But
regime.
what about Iran?
95%.
What about Iran and Mossadegh
but
who tried and it was the
Iran is
opposite?
not Iraq. 95% of the money spent in Afghanistan and Iraq was spent after they toppled the regime, Saddam Hussein in Afghanistan. So 95% was spent on trying to set up a democracy on the slopes of the Hindu Kush and the banks of the Euphrates. Or what were they thinking? But that's not the same as in Iran. Iran has far more structured civil society, and if that regime fell, you would probably get a more stable regime to replace it.
I don't think Americans have the appetite for something.
Not a
like
ground
that.
war. Not a ground war.
nor
An
do the
air war.
Israelis.
Final comments? No? Okay, well, with that, unfortunately, we have to move on. The United States Embassy in Jerusalem is now finally set to open, but coinciding with the ribbon-cutting ceremony are very mixed messages coming from the Gaza Strip. Hamas's March of Return protest in Gaza is scheduled for a grand and bloody finale, but simultaneously, the Palestinian terror group is also reportedly seeking a long-term ceasefire agreement. Here's what Israel's Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman had to say.
חמאס לא מוכן מהכסף שזרוע צבאי מקבלת בעיקר מאיראן וכל מיני גורמים קיצוניים נוספים, היא לא מוכנה להסב את הכסף הזה לטובת האזרחים, ואז הם מגלגלים אחריות לקהילה בינלאומית, לישראל, לאום וכך הלאה, לאונר"א. זה הסיבה האמיתית למשבר. וגם כשאנחנו אומרים, אנחנו מוכנים לפתור את הבעיה של עזה, אבל יש לזה תנאי אחד. קודם כל, אנחנו תוותרו על כל הטירוף הזה, השמדת, כל השאיפה להשמדת מדינת ישראל, ותסכימו לפירוס, שיקום תמורת פירוס. זאת הנוסחה. בלי זה אנחנו לא נסכים לשום דבר אחר.
So, Brian, I'm going to start with you this time. How likely is it that Hamas would agree to Lieberman's terms to demilitarize and, abandon their search for Israel's destruction?
I think it's fair to be pessimistic. At the same time, we know that there are no military solutions to Gaza. You can't shoot or bomb your way out of it. There are only diplomatic solutions.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've
I'm not,
tried that
before,
before.
let me finish, while Hamas is an obstacle to peace, surely the thing to do that Israel can do in order to improve the situation is to attack or is to address the roots of all the problems in Gaza. And some of them have to do with the blockade. So I think, and I would recommend, winding down many parts of the blockade, especially the absurd ones, like not letting in spinach and I'm saying Israel can still check ships, it can still do it, but it can at least allow Palestinian fisheries to be more than 6 nautical
Let's
miles.
talk about
When that's
blocking
exactly where
thousands
the
of
That's the
trucks are
problem.
coming and going into Gaza
Sure.
every day with food, with whatever, things that are supervised by Israel. But this is not a blockade. A blockade is when an enemy blocks you all along. When thousands of trucks going in, this is no blockade. This is a myth. This is a propaganda.
They're
It's
not-
no merit to it.
The cookie factory in Gaza
the
didn't have enough
quarantine-
margin.
the
They
quarantine-
didn't allow it in.
The quarantine,
Mr.
Sorry, Martin.
the quarantine of Gaza is the result of Arab enmity, not the reason for Arab enmity. The blockade and the quarantine was imposed because, for one reason, the Arabs wanted to kill Jews. And so the suggestion to remove it is basically anti-Semitic, because what you're saying is that the Jews should die meekly.
Hamas came to a dead end. Leave us decide the details. Look on the big picture. The big picture decided that Hamas has two alternatives. They spoke about of a hudna of 20 years. And the second, what they tried to do, such a kind...
rearm and read- and
Martin,
Hold on.
please, one moment. The second point is that they tried to create such a kind of a chaos that all the world has to interfere to do something. And that's the reason if they are going to destroy the element that give them some life, and they destroyed by themselves now. And what they're trying to cross the Israeli sovereignty, and it's well known that nobody will give them to do so. But having said that, what is going on, that from their point of view, as much casualties that they will have, it's better, which is crazy. But we, again, have to be smart. I think that Minister Katz and sometimes Lieberman speaking about a kind of solution that I really agree with it. I think that our interest that the people of Gaza can live normal life. And in the moment that we're using violence, it will not happen. But I think that there are two camps over there, and we have to be smart enough in trying to, in indirect negotiation, to find a way toward them. What's going now
does that
that
mean?
Prime Minister Netanyahu, due to the best of his ability, to have not any kind of agreement with them, because he believes in continue the conflict. This is the
First of
situation.
all, Abu, by supporting Katz and by supporting Lieberman, I was wondering, as a former member of the Knesset on behalf of Meretz, maybe you should enlist to the Likud as opposed to looking at the people you choose to support. But regardless of you're talking about an agreement, you're talking about negotiations with
You know, the
with
Prime
whom?
Minister Netanyahu
Let's not forget. Let's not forget.
Suggest me to join him.
Well,
I told him it's something that the serious man doesn't do, but forget about it.
Anyway,
about being
negotiations with whom? Proactive for what? For what cause? They elected Hamas, and they are not showing no signs of wanting to replace it. If there was any force within Gaza or within Palestinian Authority as a whole to show any direction towards empathy
quite
towards
right.
Israel or towards democracy in any way, Israel would be the first one to support this force. But for 20 years, there is no such thing. There is no one to back. There is
You're
no
never
support.
going to make peace. You're never going to make peace with. There's no such thing as a partner. You only make peace with enemies.
No, you don't. You make
No,
peace with
you make peace with
defeated
former
enemies.
enemies.
You make
But is
peace
there a
with
relevant
defeated
force
enemies.
with which we can make that peace?
First of all, we can still talk to Abu Mazen. We don't need to solve everything in the
What
conflict
Who
all
does he
at once.
represent? Who does he represent apart from himself?
The greatest
So what's the worst that can happen if
Well,
Israel has talks?
according-
No one's
you're
saying
giving up on
unilateral
your
withdrawal.
strategic assets. Once you see to talk,
I didn't
once
say,
you
I didn't say
acknowledge their
capitulate. I
rights.
said negotiate.
Well,
The fact-
once you negotiate, what negotiation
what-
is all about? You give up, I give up. Now, we have been negotiating with them for 2 decades, and we see what's going on.
3
we are giving up
decades
step
heads
after
of
step
the
after step.
IDF are saying we should negotiate
greatest-
with
well,
Israel.
The greatest myth is that the Palestinian population is the victim of its leadership. It's not the victim, it's the crucible that created that leadership and the crucible from which that leadership emerged. There is no chance of finding a negotiating partner. And if you wanted to have a look at Abu Mazen, time and time again, he's shown his Judophobic predictions. Talking
It's
about
not
the
enough
Jews.
to continue
So
ruling
what
over
if this
another
is
people.
No, I agree with you, but
forever
that's a
to live
different.
on our
know
sword,
what.
Martin?
Well, the option is to die on
Forever
your
to
sword.
live on our
The
sword,
option is to die on your
choose
sword.
in one state, there will be 50%,
No, that-
we will be 50%.
no.
And
That's
just
a
for
false
the
choice.
generation,
That's a false choice.
this is the solution.
That's a false
Right,
choice.
'cause the other
If you
choice
want to
is
hear my,
continued
if you want to hear
occupation.
my solution, we need another program. But
Well, you say forced evictions
no, I don't say
or
forced eviction.
incentivized evictions.
Incentivized
Millions of
immigration.
Palestinians aren't going to
Incentivized-
voluntarily leave all the
It depends
cities.
what their options are. It depends what the options are.
I mean-
Incentivized immigration is the only solution that can preserve Israel as a nation state of the Jewish people, to allow it to control the strategic assets
It's
that it
not
needs.
living in reality at that
No, I
point.
tell you what's not living in reality is continue supporting
Simon,
a
agree
two-state
with us.
solution.
This is reality.
Continued support of a two-state solution
There's
is
a
being
live
really
Israel
realistic.
campaign.
We've only tried for
Yeah,
quarter of a
actually,
century.
so
Final comments.
That
and
the
then
world
we'll-
is really open for them, will make their personal decision to live here, to fight. If they know that in the future there is some hope to live a regular life here, they will continue to live here.
That's-
According
Well,
to
they
your
have this
opinion,
hope. They have
what you're
this hope.
thinking, just for generation, we are going to fight. It's not any hope
on
for
that
quarter
note-
of
young
a century,
people.
for quarter of a
On the
century.
contrary,
On that
quarter
note,
of a century.
Dr. Sherman,
Quarter of
Dr.
a century,
Sherman, Abu
you've been
Vilan.
trying to sell that idea,
Dr.
and it's
Sherman.
only cost thousands of people their lives and their limbs.
All right. On that note, unfortunately, we do have to move on to the good word, the silver lining. Avshalom Vilan, would you like to start us off? This is a very quick, something positive to look forward to, despite everything we've just discussed.
Look, I think that in the last week or two, there are few tremendous steps which Israel played very good cards. The question is, and you have to remember it, that it's not forever, and you have again and again, cool and smart, and to move forward to find a chance to create a new reality here in the Middle East, not forever on our sword, on the contrary, to build the hope.
And I'll bring up the Eurovision, and that I think this is proof that we finally have from Europeans showing that young Europeans, many of the people who actually voted, they voted for Israel despite whatever political hang-ups they might have in their personal lives. And I think this is this is a lesson to us Israelis that this isn't just an anti-Semitic world out there. There are people who like Israel, the Europeans who like Israel, and that they understand the difference between the Israeli people and the government that they protest.
Which is good, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, I go for my website, a website that I edit Midah. It exists everywhere. But this week in particular, we have a fundraising campaign that is online, and well, we've been the voice of the Israeli right for more than half a decade, and we would like to keep on doing that. So we have this campaign, and I encourage everyone, every viewer who views me here and like what I have to say, to go to midah.org.il or en.midah.org.il, our English edition, and to look up where to donate, because we need this support to exist.
Well, what's to be pessimistic? The embassy, the Iran deal, the recent Giro, and the Eurovision. I'm just summing up what everything says, but it's been a good fortnight for Israel.
Been a good week.
Good cards.
It's a lot of positive things to focus on, and that's the way I like to end the show. So unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today for ILTV's Israel Weekly. Again, I'd love to thank our guests, Dr. Martin Sherman, Ziv Maor, Avshalom Vilan, and Brian Reeves. And of course, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Remember to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras, and we'll see you next week.